The crystal glass slipped from her trembling fingers and shattered across the marble floor just as the billionaire walked in with his deaf mother on his arm. Every head in the restaurant turned. The manager's face drained of color. And in the center of it all stood a shy waitress who had always tried to make herself invisible, now exposed under golden chandeliers and judging eyes. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of compassion, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even the softest voices can change the loudest rooms. Her name was Eliza Warren, and invisibility had always felt safer than attention. She worked the late shift at La Belle Vie, the most expensive restaurant in the city, where politicians, celebrities, and CEOs came to dine under candlelight and whisper million-dollar deals. Eliza did not belong there. At least, that's what she told herself every time she adjusted her borrowed uniform in the bathroom mirror. She had grown up with a mother who slowly lost her hearing over the years. Hospitals, hearing aids, unpaid bills, and long nights of translating the world for her had shaped Eliza into someone observant and careful. By the time she was 12, she had learned American Sign Language fluently. By 16, she was interpreting doctor appointments. By 22, she was the sole provider for her mom after her father passed away. College had become a dream folded neatly and placed away in a drawer labeled, "Someday." At the restaurant, Eliza spoke little. Some of the other waitresses were bold and charming, tossing their hair and laughing loudly to earn better tips. Eliza relied on precision instead, memorizing orders flawlessly, refilling glasses before they were empty, moving like a shadow between tables. She avoided eye contact with wealthy guests, fearing that if they looked too closely, they would see her patched shoes and the weight she carried behind her polite smile. The night Adrien Laurent arrived, the air itself felt expensive. Everyone knew his name. Owner of Laurent Industries, youngest self-made billionaire in the country, featured on magazine covers with cold gray eyes and an unreadable expression. But what few knew was that he rarely attended public dinners unless his mother insisted. His mother, Madeleine Laurent, had been deaf since childhood. Adrien had learned sign language as a boy to speak to her, but after boarding schools and business empires, his fluency had faded into stiff, awkward gestures. They communicated mostly through written notes now. There was love between them, but also distance. When they were seated in Eliza's section, her manager leaned close and whispered sharply that she must not make any mistakes. The pressure coiled in her stomach. She approached their table with hands that felt heavier than usual. Madeleine's eyes were warm and observant, scanning the room like someone who understood silence better than sound. Adrien, meanwhile, scrolled through his phone, barely looking up. As Eliza placed the first course down, the glass slipped. It hit the floor with a violent crack. Conversations halted. A fork clinked against porcelain somewhere in the room. The manager rushed forward, apology already forming on his lips. Eliza's heart pounded so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. She crouched quickly, whispering apologies that tangled in her throat. But when she looked up, she saw Madeleine watching her, not with irritation but curiosity. And in that split second, instinct overpowered fear. Eliza raised her hands and signed, fluid and gentle, apologizing for the accident and asking if they were all right. Madeleine's eyes widened in surprise. Her entire posture shifted, as if a light had turned on inside her. She signed back, her movements graceful despite age, telling Eliza that accidents happen and asking her name. The room, unaware of what was being said, watched in confusion as the two women communicated in silence. Adrien slowly lifted his head, noticing his mother's sudden engagement. He followed her gaze to Eliza's hands moving with confidence and ease. He froze. For years, he had watched waiters speak loudly and slowly to his mother, assuming volume could replace understanding. He had seen people avoid eye contact, embarrassed by her silence. Yet here was a young waitress who didn't hesitate, who didn't pity, who didn't treat his mother like a fragile inconvenience. She treated her like a person. Adrien felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Eliza finished clearing the broken glass and returned with steady hands. Throughout the evening, she continued signing with Madeleine, describing each dish in detail, sharing small stories about the ingredients, even joking softly about how chocolate desserts were the best therapy. Madeleine laughed silently, shoulders shaking with joy. It was the most animated Adrian had seen her in years. Other diners began to notice. The wealthy couple at the next table stared, curiosity turning into quiet respect. The manager, who had expected disaster, watched tips accumulate and tension dissolve. But for Eliza, the night was not about impressing anyone. It was about a woman who reminded her of home, of evenings spent signing stories to her own mother in their tiny kitchen. For a few hours, she forgot about overdue rent and medical bills. She simply connected. When the bill arrived, Adrian did something unexpected. Instead of signing stiffly to his mother, he asked Eliza to stay a moment. His voice was low, controlled, but his eyes were different now, less distant, more searching. He asked where she had learned to sign so fluently. She explained about her mother, about growing up translating the world. She tried to keep her words simple, not wanting to sound like she was seeking sympathy. Adrian listened without interruption. Madeline reached for her son's arm and signed something to him slowly. His expression softened as he translated aloud. She said that tonight was the first time in a long time she felt truly heard outside their home. Eliza's throat tightened. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears. Adrian stood, walked around the table, and did something no one expected. He signed directly to Eliza, awkward at first, hands hesitant but determined. He thanked her, not as a billionaire tipping a waitress, but as a son grateful to someone who gave his mother a rare gift. The entire restaurant seemed to exhale at once. But the story did not end there. The next afternoon, Eliza was called into the manager's office. Fear surged through her. She replayed the broken glass in her mind, certain that her job was gone. Instead, she found Adrien Laurent sitting calmly in the chair across from her manager's desk. He explained that his mother ran a foundation dedicated to accessibility and education for the deaf community. They funded schools, provided hearing devices, and supported interpreters. Recently, Madeline had expressed a desire to bring someone passionate and authentic onto the board, someone who understood the daily realities of deaf families. She had chosen Eliza. Eliza thought it was a mistake. She had no degree, no formal training beyond life itself. But Adrian insisted that lived experience mattered more than polished resumes. He offered to sponsor her education, to cover her mother's medical expenses, and to provide a position within the foundation if she wished to accept. The offer felt unreal. Suspicion flickered. Why would a billionaire trust a waitress? But when she looked at Madeline, who had accompanied her son and now smiled warmly, Eliza saw sincerity. She went home that evening in tears, telling her mother everything through excited, trembling signs. Her mother's hands cupped her face, pride shining in eyes that had witnessed every sacrifice. The transition was not easy. The foundation offices were intimidating, filled with professionals in tailored suits. Eliza stumbled through her first meetings, voice shaking during presentations. Some board members questioned her qualifications. She went home exhausted, doubting herself. But Madeline stood beside her at every event, introducing her not as a charity case but as a partner. Adrian, too, practiced sign language more diligently, determined not to let the bridge between him and his mother weaken again. Slowly, Eliza found confidence blooming where fear once lived. She proposed outreach programs for low-income families, drawing from her own struggles. She advocated for interpreters in emergency rooms. She worked tirelessly, driven not by money but by memory. Months later, at the Foundation's annual gala held in the very same restaurant where she once served tables, Eliza stood on stage. The chandeliers shimmered above her just as they had on the night the glass shattered. But this time, the room looked at her with admiration, not judgment. She signed her speech first, every movement deliberate and expressive, then spoke aloud for the hearing guests. She talked about the loneliness that silence can create, not because of deafness itself, but because the world often refuses to learn its language. She thanked Madeline for believing in her and Adrian for seeing beyond a uniform. As she finished, she signed one final sentence, that kindness is the most powerful language of all. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Adrian stood first, applauding with tears openly streaming down his face. He wasn't applauding a waitress anymore. He was applauding a woman who had reminded him what truly matters. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more stories that restore faith in humanity. And before we reach the final moments, tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced a small act of kindness that changed your life forever? That night, after the gala ended and the guests departed, Eliza stepped outside for air. The city lights shimmered like scattered diamonds. Adrian joined her quietly. There was no arrogance in him now, only gratitude. He signed fluently this time, thanking her again, not just for helping his mother, but for helping him find his way back to her. Eliza realized then that sometimes, the most powerful transformations happen not through grand gestures, but through simple understanding. A broken glass had led to a restored bond between a mother and son. A shy waitress had found her voice without ever raising it. And somewhere in the city, families who once felt invisible were beginning to be seen. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that compassion can rewrite destinies, please engage with this video, like it, comment your thoughts, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Your support keeps these stories alive. Because sometimes, all it takes is one silent conversation to change everything.